What is an NBA unicorn?
Thank you. I'm a unicorn!
Actually, it's a term Kevin Durant came up with for Kristaps Porzingis, a 7-footer who can play make, shoot, and defend, a mythical beast. Nowadays, there are a ton of big men with that skill set, but before all of them, even KP, was Ralph Sampson, a point guard in a 7'4" body. He could pass, shoot, defend, and dribble. He was a superstar in college and could have been one of the greatest NBA players ever. The story of why he failed is tragic, but is only one of many what-ifs. Ralph could have changed the course of NBA history 4 times. This video explains. Hey, it's Casey, welcome to AM Hoops. Hit subscribe and notification bells. Feature Friday will stay on AM Hoops. I initially thought about breaking it off to its own channel, but I ran a poll and almost 90% of you said keep just one channel. So today's member shoutouts go to Nomo, but also to Julian, because this is actually Julian's video request. And to be honest, he initially requested another video, but the way these work is I also have to think it is a good story, and this one is awesome. 7'4" with over a 30-inch vertical. How could you stop that? Especially if he can handle the ball and shoot. Ralph Sampson was the original Kevin Garnett, basically, without KG's killer mindset. Imagine Anthony Davis without a 3. Like AD, Ralph had point guard skills in high school. He was 6'7" as a 9th grader, 7'1" as a senior. He chose to stay home for college at Virginia and won 3 straight Player of the Year awards.
Even Michael Jordan won this big in college. In my generation, Ralph was the first Greek college superstar.
The Houston Rockets won back-to-back #1 overall picks. They chose Ralph Sampson in 1983 and Hakeem Olajuwon in '84. Back-to-back 7-footers, which sounds kind of dumb, especially because Michael Jordan was on the board in '84. The reason it worked? Ralph Sampson was not your typical center. He could play an unstoppable power forward, and the Rockets' Twin Towers dominated. Sampson won Rookie of the Year and All-Star in year 1. Year 2, he was All-Star Game MVP, but the Rockets lost in round 1. The next season, though, Houston made the finals. People hated it because the Celtics and Lakers were supposed to play, but Sampson had other ideas. He finished off the '86 Lakers in 5 games, a buzzer beater with 1 second left.
Sampson. It goes. It's over. A miraculous shot.
The Rockets put up a real fight in the finals against the best Celtics team ever. Boston won 67 games that year with 5 Hall of Famers. Houston was down 3-1 when Sampson picked a fight with Jerry Seasting, the smallest guy on the court.
And a melee is broken out here.
This was the most unfair fight ever. Ralph got in 2 good punches before they broke it up too.
Ralph, what happened?
So I got to say about this call. We should win the game, and it's the way they want to play. We can play like that all night.
It upset Ralph Sampson. Let's go back to Dick.
The Rockets rallied after Ralph was ejected and won that game, but lost in 6. They didn't feel too bad though about losing because A, the Celtics were a juggernaut, and B, their stars were young. The Rockets envisioned like finals run after finals run, but in reality that was the furthest that squad would get. And Sampson was off the team just a year and a half later. It all started with this fall against the C's in the regular season. You can hear Ralph's head and back smack the floor.
Oh, down to the deck.
He was temporarily paralyzed after that fall and just woke up in the hospital. As bad for that team was their point guard's drug scandal. John Lucas was kicked off the team for that behavior. He could drop 20 and 10 any night, and some thought that Houston could have won the title if Lucas was sober. The next year, Houston just imploded. 2 more Rockets players were kicked off the team for drugs, and Sampson fell apart physically. Turns out, when he fell against Boston, Ralph injured his hip and back. Instead of getting fully healthy, he came back early because the team needed him. To this day, he regrets that decision because overcompensating for that hip killed his knees. Ralph tore cartilage in his left knee and had the first of 3 surgeries. This article from February 1987 says, Ralph Sampson, Houston's 7'4" power forward and center, will probably miss the rest of the season after injuring his left knee in the game Tuesday night against the Denver Nuggets. Well, dude came back 8 weeks later. He did it again because the Rockets had a chance to win and needed him. But even with that kind of dedication, the team traded him the next year. It was a gut punch to Ralph, but actually, it was the right thing to do from a team perspective. His knees were shot, and he didn't get along with head coach Bill Fitch. One reporter said at the time, at the end there was no relationship. They didn't get along almost from the start. Ralph came into the league, he had this reputation for being aloof. Then you come in with Fitch, who's an in-your-face type of guy like most coaches at the time. Ralph just wasn't that macho, low-post, I'm gonna beat you up center that he was accustomed to. So Sampson went to Golden State for 2 lesser players and played just 154 of a possible 328 games his last 4 years. In total, he played just 441 of a possible 820, just over half his pro games for a guy who played all 82 his first 2 seasons. Sampson was so determined to keep playing though, he went to Spain for a year, even played minor league basketball back home. He retired for good though in 1995 as his old team won back-to-back titles with a totally different roster outside of Hakeem. It probably hurt so bad for Ralph wondering, what if I didn't get hurt? In fact, I think those Rockets teams could have been a dynasty because the Lakers and Celtics had phased out. The Pistons instead won 2 titles before the Bulls took over. The good news is Ralph Sampson actually made the Hall of Fame in 2012, but I think his actual legacy is the greatest what-if player ever. 4 different times he could have changed the course of NBA history. It all started in 1980 when Red Auerbach tried to convince him to come out of college and play for the Celtics. Had he done that, they would never have gotten Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish. Their dynasty probably doesn't happen. In 1982, he stayed in school again, but the Lakers got the #1 pick and chose James Worthy. Ralph could have been a Showtime Laker next to Kareem. In '84, the Rockets chose Hakeem over Jordan because Sampson could play the 4, and in '87, he chose to rush his knee and derailed an all-time career. Instead of a Rockets dynasty, Isaiah's Pistons got 2 rings. These days, it makes sense that teams are so careful with injuries, especially for big men. Joel Embiid missed most of his first 2 years. Zion Williamson took his rookie year off, basically. And there's no doubt those guys' career is extended, and it makes me wonder what it would be like if Ralph Sampson played today in 2021. So guys, real quick, a Baron Davis what happened to, one of the more interesting retirements in NBA history to me. If you want to catch up on all the Feature Fridays, the playlist is right here.